Hello fourth year students. Today is a new poem from the modern era, and as you see, this time period in the literature is really rich with variety of let's say movements, thoughts, kinds of poetry. And in this poem, Skunk Hour by Robert Lowell, we are going to meet this kind of poetry which was known as the confessional poetry, and of course it belongs to the modern period. And Robert Lowell is one of the most famous for writing such kind of poetry, the confessional poetry. So Skunk Hour is one of the famous poems by Lowell, which represents this tone, the confessional tone. What do we need to know about the poem? First of all, Robert Lowell was born in 1917, died 1977, was one of the major American poets of the mid 20th century, which means he lived, or his prominence was in the 50s. He was a key figure in the confessional poetry movement, which emerged in the US in the 1950s and 60s. And we also know other poets, not just Robert Lowell, like, for example, Sylvia Plath, who's also a really famous American poet, who's considered to be a confessional poet. Confessional poetry is mostly personal. So what makes this poetry different, or why do we call it confessional, and what do we mean by the term? It is very personal, to the point that the poet goes to extremes in describing traumas, in describing some kind of mental situation he is living in, even sometimes speaking about sexual things that are really private and very, very personal. So dealing with issues of sexuality, trauma, and mental illness. Don't we have other poets who spoke about these things before? Yes, of course, they have written about their experiences, but not to the point of revealing very personal details. And this is what makes the poetry of the confessional poets very starking, very surprising. When you are reading it, you see that the poet is very frank about his situation. The final poem, this poem is the final poem of Lowell's 1959 collection Life Studies, one of the most influential books of the confessionalist movement. So whenever you are studying about the confessional poets, whenever you are reading about them, you will come across this collection of poems by Robert Lowell. The poem is dedicated to Bishop, Elizabeth Bishop. You know this poet, also another famous American poet, and it was inspired in part by her poem The Armadillo. So actually the poem is related to another poem written by Bishop, so it was inspired by it. And so that's why in the beginning of the poem, what does Lowell do? He dedicates this poem to her. Okay. And the poem that she has written also was dedicated also to Robert Lowell. So let's have also a look on the title. Skunk. What is a skunk? تعرفون هذا الحيوان skunk اللي هو الضربان. This kind of animal, on the outside it appears to have a black body, black color, and the white strips that goes along the tail also. الضربان كل احنا شايفين اللي هو لونه اسود وابيض. بعد شنو يميز الضربان؟ It has a bad smell whenever it feels danger lying around. It produces a very bad and ugly smell in order to drive away the danger. Okay, so it is an animal which produces a bad smell when feeling danger. Therefore the reader is subconsciously associating the title with something negative. So we suspect, or we think that mentioning the skunk, which directly reminds us of the bad smell of this animal and the negative effect of this smell, this gives us a kind of negative feeling about the poem. So there is something negative that he's going to talk about. Okay, indirectly we feel ourselves thinking like this, subconsciously associating the title with some kind of negative idea, combining this with the noun hour. Notice here, hour, skunk hour. So as if this bad situation is governed by a certain time. There is this time that comes, and when it comes, there is something bad, a bad feeling maybe, um, a kind of hour which maybe it's the culmination of a certain negative experience. كأنما skunk hour. طبعا حتى هاي العبارة يمكن حتى استخدمت بعدين يعني للإشارة إلى الساعة أو اللحظة اللي الإنسان يشعر بها أنه الشيء السيء وصل إلى ذروة. The bad feeling has come to certain high, very high point. You see, something like this. One can say that the title refers to a troublesome or bad phase. Comparing this with the dissatisfied persons in the poem, the title already hints to an unsatisfying phase of life. So we are going to expect something depressing, something distressing that the poet is going to talk about. And what you need to know also about Robert Lowell, we haven't mentioned this in the beginning. Robert Lowell actually suffered all his all his life from depression, from mental illness. He was suffering from the bipolar disorder, الاضطراب ثنائي القطب. يعني كان عنده أصلا هو حالة نفسية، مرض نفسي، كان يعاني طول حياته من هاي نوبات الاكتئاب. And he was all the time taken in and out of hospital because of such kind of states that he was going through. إذن هنا الشاعر نفسه واللي قد يكون هو نفسه السبيكر. Both, he could be the poet and the speaker. Maybe we are talking about the same person, maybe not. But we can think of the reflection of his depressive state on the meanings and the ideas in the poem. So how does this poem reflect this? We are going to see. Just to put this in your mind as you are reading, that the poet himself suffers from this kind of mental illness or disorder. Let's start with the poem. Nautilus Island's hermit Iris still lives through winter in her Spartan cottage. Her sheep still graze above the sea. Her son's a bishop. Her farmer is first selectman in our village. She is in her dotage. Now, what is this? Where is this place? What is he talking about? Actually, the place is known. It's here mentioned by name, Nautilus Island. يعني هاي اسماء، هذا اسم مكان فعلا موجود يعني. كل هسه اسماء الاماكن اللي يذكرها هي فعلا اماكن موجوده، يعني هو فعلا كان موجود بيها، يعني الشاعر نفسه تواجد بهاي الاماكن. Nautilus Island, here we are talking about this place. What do we find in this place? There is a lady, hermit Iris, still lives through winter in her Spartan cottage. There is this lady who lives in a Spartan cottage، يعني هذا المكان اللي عايشة بيه البيت مبني على هذا الطراز. Okay, what do we know about this lady? She's an Iris، يعني she has inherited, she's wealthy, she has inherited money. Her sheep still graze above the sea. She has a flock of sheep، عندها أغنام. Her son's a bishop. What about her son? Her son is a religious person, he's a bishop. Her farmer is first selectman in our village. Okay, and there is this person who's a farmer who works for her, and he's one of the seniors in the town. Seniors، واحد من دول الكبار يعني الموجودين بالبلدة نفسها يعني. Okay, she's in her dotage. At what phase of life she's now? dotage يعني عندها خرف، يعني نقول هي في مرحلة كلش متقدمة من الحياة. She's an old lady, and she's living here as if she's isolated, thirsting for the hierarchic privacy of Queen Victoria's century. So the lady, maybe she's very old, and she's one of those people who think of the classical way of life and all the time want to go back to that kind of life. Okay, so the lady knows the way of life in the Victorian era. She's rich enough to buy all the houses. لاحظوا هنا من نقول she buys up all the eyesores facing her shore and lets them fall. She's very rich to the point that she's able to buy all the houses in front of her cottage. Why does she buy them? Because she doesn't like the way they look. Eyesore يعني منظرهن مزعج للعين. فش سوت؟ اشترتهن What did she do then? Let them fall. She destroyed them because she doesn't like them. So this is one of the characters who live in this place, in this area, and she's a lady. Who's the other character? لاحظوا هنا راح نشوف شخصيات، يعني هنا هو بالقصيدة راح يوصف لنا شخصيات، يوصف لنا شيء عن هاي الشخصيات. Who's the other one? The season's ill. We've lost our summer millionaire, who seemed to leap from an LL Bean catalog. His 9-knot yawl was auctioned off to lobstermen. A red fox stain covers Blue Hill. Who's the other character who lives in this place? He's a millionaire. Okay, he's a millionaire. And where is he? Or does he live? What is the time that he comes to the island? Usually summer. So maybe he's one of those very wealthy, fancy, rich people who has maybe a very huge house in the island, and he comes only in summer. يعني بفصل الصيف يجي يصيف بهذا المكان. But we've lost. لاحظوا بنقول we've lost our summer millionaire. Maybe he has stopped coming. He doesn't come anymore. Okay, who seemed to leap from an LL Bean catalog. When you look at this millionaire, you think you are looking at a model, one of those people who are pictured in the LL Bean catalog. This is a brand, clothing brand. اكو فد علامة تجارية للملابس LL Bean. فهذا الشخص متباع عليه لأن هو مليونير غني. كأنما تشوف، كأنما تحس هو طالع من واحد من هذا الكتالوجز مال ملابس، من قد ما شكله أنيق ويلبس نفس هذا اللبس مال العلامة التجارية يعني. As if he's one of those models that you see on the pages of the catalog. He's really rich. His 9-knot yawl. He has a yacht. شوفي ذا الأغنياء عندهم هاي الممتلكة، عنده يخت، عنده ما أعرف طيارة. See, was auctioned off to lobstermen. So this millionaire doesn't come anymore. And what about things he has in the island? His yacht was auctioned off to lobstermen. It was auctioned يعني دخل مزاد، يعني كأنما صار أكو مزاد. And sold to lobsters. It was sold to lobster hunters. دول الصيادين اشتروا هذا اليخت مالته. A red fox stain covers Blue Hill. Now what time of the year he's describing? لما يقول red fox stain covers Blue Hill. You see the color of the trees in autumn. خصوصا هم عندهم بأمريكا يعني بفصل الخريف شي يصير لون الأشجار أحمر. شنو يا درجة من اللون الأحمر أو البرتقالي. red fox. شايفين الثعلب درجة اللون اللي عليه، وطبعا درجات هي مو درجة واحدة. So when you are looking at the kind of red that you find in the fox, this animal. Okay, so this time now it has become what? Autumn, fall. Okay, so here we are talking still. So the scenery seems like it is autumn. Okay, the foxy red color is dominant all over the area of Blue Hill. Blue Hill أيضا نفس يعني منطقة أيضا موجودة، يعني فعلا هو كان موجود قريب من عندها. And now our fairy decorator brightens his shop for fall. Another character, the decorator. He works as a decorator. Okay, what does he do for his shop? He decorates it in order to be suitable for the time of the year. يعني مو فصل الخريف يقوم يغير بالألوان مالت المحل مالت الشوب، يخلي ألوان خريفية. Like what? His fishnets filled with orange cork. Orange is the color of autumn. Orange. His cobbler's bench and all. Everything in his shop is decorated in the colors of the season. There is no money in his work. He'd rather marry. Actually, his job is not giving him good money, so he's thinking of marrying instead of working in this job. So another character, he's the decorator, is preparing his shop to match the color of the environment in fall. His shop is unprofitable. He'd rather get married than keep running it. So till now we have three characters. عندنا ثلاث شخصيات يعيشون بهذا المكان. Before we go to the next stanza or the next part, I need you just to think about what kind of feeling does it give you when you are reading about this place, when you are reading about these characters who are living here. And notice till now we are not knowing anything about the speaker. حتى هسه احنا ما نعرف speaker منو وشون ليش دا يلاحظ هذول الناس وشون دا يوصفهم ليش دا يوصفهم بهالطريقة. And the description I think here is really it gives us this impression of gloominess, as if this place is not a welcome place. It is not a beautiful or amusing place, because here we have يعني لاحظوا شخصيات حتى الوصف مال الشخصيات تحسون بنوع من السلبية. For example, the lady here, she's living alone. She seems to be living alone, and also she seems not to get along with her surrounding. She wants to go back in time to the Victorian era. She destroys the houses because she thinks they are not matching with her house. And here we might think of the modern let's say appearances. يعني كأنما هذا نوع من النقد بس المبطن يعني للحداثة. Modern shapes, modern architecture that doesn't match or doesn't look like the things that she's used to and she likes, so she destroys them. Okay, what about here the millionaire who used to come here and now he's gone. He doesn't come anymore, leaving the place. Again, it gives us this feeling of depressing state. And the decorator who uses this kind of colors of autumn. طبعا autumn, when you are speaking about autumn is not a season of hope. It is a season of melancholy, because it announces the end of life and beginning of the end of life in nature. It is the cycle of nature which represents death. So the tone here in description of these three characters gives us this feeling that the speaker is not comfortable, or he's trying to also give us this kind of negative feeling about the place. Now let's move to the next part here. One dark night, my Tudor Ford climbed the hill's skull. I watched for love cars. Now we are introduced to the speaker. Now he uses I. هنا يحكي عن نفسه، يقول my I. لاحظوا هنا بدأ يحكي بصيغة المتكلم. What does he have? He has this car, Tudor Ford. لاحظوا, and he's driving this car, the hill's skull. I watched for love cars. He was going to this point above, somewhere high, and he was spying on other cars. And what do we have in these cars? Lovers making love. يعني يتصنت على أو يتجسس على الناس الموجودين بالسيارات, and they are in love, lovers. So he drove his car to a point where he can spy on lovers in their cars. The cars sat side by side. هاي هنا بنقول they lay together, hull to hull. Sorry, lights turned down. They lay together, hull to hull. Here, notice here the kind of passive language he's using. لاحظوا هنا حتى من دا يحكي بصيغة يعني يحكي عن نفسه, هو دا يذكر نفسه. من يقول my Tudor Ford climbed the hills. Of course the car is not moving around by itself. He is the one who's driving, but he's talking about it as if it is moving alone. He's trying to distance himself. كأنه هنا دا يبعد نفسه. ما يقول أنا كنت أقود السيارة, لا, يقول السيارة شقت طريقها إلى. هذا النوع من التعبير يخلي المتكلم يعني يخلق مسافة بينه وبين الشيء. يعني ما يحاول انه هو يوصل للقارئ فكرة انه هو بعيد, هو مو كلش داخل بالأحداث. يعني he's not really involved. Okay, he's not really involved in the action. I watched for love cars. But here, even here, when he says love cars, he doesn't say that there are people inside. هو ما قال, يعني هو بس قال love cars. Did he mention any people here? Did he mention, for example, he said, I saw lovers? Did he mention people? Said, for example, men and women? No. But just saying love cars means that he's talking about the cars. When two lovers, for example, take their cars to a distant place in order to have privacy. احنا مجرد استنتجنا فهمنا من كلامه انه هو يقصد هذا الشيء، بس هو حقيقة ما ذكر أي ناس. يعني he's not mentioning people. Even when he talks about people, it seems that he's trying to keep a distance from them. Okay, where the graveyard shelves on the town, and in this spot we have the graveyard. Even the dead people, they seem to be looking at and spying on the lovers. Something wrong. لحظة, my mind's not right. So here he's telling us directly, he's confessing to us that there is something wrong in his mind. He's not feeling well. He's not comfortable. Okay? Something's wrong with my brain. A car radio bleats, love, oh careless love. I hear my ill spirit sob in each blood cell. As he was standing there, he heard a song coming out of a radio car. كفت أغنية واحدة من السيارات مشغلين أغنية. شنو هالأغنية؟ careless oh love oh careless love. كفت أغنية هي بالخمسينات كان اسمها careless love. من عنوانها يعني careless love. You can feel that it also gives this kind of depressive tone and feeling. Okay, so what about his feeling at this point? My ill spirit. I feel that my spirit is sick. Here in this part, he's directly telling us that he suffers. There is a kind of suffering inside him. Sob in each blood cell. Okay, every blood cell in his body seems to be suffering. شوفوا يعني قدرة الإنسان على أنه يعبر عن كمية الألم والشعور الحزن أو الاكتئاب اللي يشعر به، مخليه يحس أنه هو كل خلية بجسمه كأنما هي تختنق. Strangle. لاحظوا هنا. As if my hand were at its throat. كأنما هو يعني كل خلية بجسمه تختنق. See, this is really a very deep expression of depression. A very precise. شوف يعني مو كل واحد يقدر يعبر عن هذا الإحساس. إنسان المكتئب، وهنا نحكي عن كآبة، مو شعور كآبة، لا، مرض الاكتئاب. صعب التعبير عنه. صعب الإنسان يعرف يعبر عن شنو اللي يحس به خلال هذا المرض. But here I think this is a really very very strong expression when he says every blood cell, each blood cell, as if my hand were at its throat. So his depression seems to be affecting every blood cell in his body, as if he is strangling them with his hands. يخنق نفسه يعني يخنق. I myself am hell. I myself am hell. يعني my mind, myself is hell itself. And this is by the way, this is taken from Milton's Paradise Lost. تعرفون هاي القصيدة أو إذا أخذتوا منها جزء أو درستوها؟ Paradise Lost لجون ميلتون. أكفد عبارة هي هاي تعتبر illusion يعني. I myself am hell. This is said by Satan to describe himself. Nobody's here. I'm alone. I'm all alone. So you can imagine here that the speaker is directly communicating to us the loneliness he feels, the depression, how it is torturing him, how it is making his depression even worse. Okay, هاي هنا هذا المقطع يعبر عن هاي الحالة اللي يحس بها المتكلم أو الشاعر. Only skunks. Now skunks come to the scene. هسه نجي شو احنا مو نقول العنوان القصيدة skunk hour. وين مكان السكانكس من هاي الموضوع كله؟ only skunks that search in the moonlight for a bite to eat. Now what does he see in the scene? And here we are talking at night. لاحظوا الكلام هسه وين من نقول moonlight يعني شنو؟ What time is it? Moonlight. It is at night. من يذكر القمر معناها شنو؟ معناها الدنيا ليل. When we say night, we are talking about darkness. It is a dark hour. It is the dark hour, and here darkness also could be understood as referring to depression itself. Okay? What do we find in the dark hour at night? What other creatures are around? Skunks. هاي الضربان دي يفتر بالليل. Okay? What do these skunks look for? They are looking for food, of course. They march on their soles up Main Street. Main Street أيضا هاي اسم منطقة هي المنطقة الأساسية اللي هو يحكي عنها. White stripes, moonstruck eyes, red fire. When you look at these animals, you can see that their shape, the white stripes, and also the red color, the reflection of light on their eyes. You can find it. يعني من يجي ضوء القمر على هذا الحيوان ينعكس، يعني تنعكس لون الأحمر مال العيون وشكل مالته، خصوصا الخطوط البيض من ينعكس عليها ضوء القمر. Under the chalk dry and sparse spire of the Trinitarian Church. So what lies around? Now لاحظوا هو من بداية أول شي ذكر 3 شخصيات، وبعد هاي الشخصيات حكى عن نفسه، بعد ما حكى عن نفسه انتقل إلى السكانكس. Okay? I stand on top of our back steps and breathe the rich air. Now he is going back to his house. At this point he goes back to his house after watching the skunks, after watching the others. What does he find when he goes back? لاحظوا من يقول and breathe the rich air. breathe. شوفوا هاي الكلمة شوي تعطينا نوع من الراحة. breathe. What kind of air? Rich air. A mother skunk with her column of kittens. Another skunk, and now it is a mother, and she has these small children. She has the طبعا هنا كلمة children مو مضبوط استخدامها بس خلينا نمشيها. The small kittens swills the garbage pail. What does she do? She's looking for food in the garbage. She jabs her wedged head in a cup of sour cream. لقيت لها فد علبة مال sour cream وخلى راسها بيها عندها تاكل من عندها. Drops her ostrich tail. She's relaxed and will not scare. No matter how the poet is moving somewhere near, anything around movement, she doesn't seem to be afraid. She's busy eating, looking for food. Okay? She would not be scared by anything. يعني هي عندها الأكل أهم من الأشياء منه أكو يعني حركة حولها. She's not afraid of it. She keeps eating regardless of any movement around her. Okay? So at this point the poem is over. What do we understand from this? As you see, the poem is kind of perplexing because we have different episodes and each one of them reflects something. Let's see what we can understand from this poem. Living in a desolated island reflects the speaker's loneliness as well. Notice here he's talking about a place which seems to be isolated. It's not some kind of busy town or some kind of a modern city, although there are some modern aspects in it, but it seems isolated, and the speaker seems to be a lonely person living in this desolated island. Okay, so it also reflects the poet's situation. He suffers from depression, and he frankly states that his mind and self feels like a hell, as if he is strangling his spirit. One might ask, what's the significance of mentioning the 3 characters? زين ذول 3 شخصيات اللي بالبداية شنو فائدتهم؟ ليش ذكرهم؟ شنو ممكن يعكسون؟ مثل ما قلنا شخصيات الثلاثة كل وحدة تعكس فد شيء معين احنا نفهمه بهالشكل. For example, the lady we said she reflects this kind of a contrast with the modern city, the modern aspects of life. يعني شخص ما يقدر يتعايش ويا الحداثة ويا مظاهر الحداثة، المدينة الحديثة. Okay, the millionaire, for example, millionaire has left the island. He couldn't stay in this island, while the decorator was trying also to create some kind of let's say an appearance for his shop that matches nature. So I think what he means to show here is that what enhances the depressive state that he's falling to is that he's living in a time that modernism is causing this kind of decay and decline in life, in the aspects of life. يعني الحداثة أو المظاهر الحديثة المدنية خلقت هذا النوع من التراجع. يعني الإنسان ما يقدر يعيش بالمدنية الحديثة مثل ما كان قبل. كان يعيش يعني سيحس الإنسان أنه هو يصطدم ويا الطبيعة أكثر، يحس أنه هو هاي المدنية نوعا ما تؤدي إلى خراب أو دمار الإنسان أكثر ما تبنيه. See, it causes more depressive states. It creates kind of psychological disorders more than comfort. Modern cities, they don't give comfort. Okay? Watching other people. Now look at this one. Watching other people and even spying on them shows a desire for connection. Why would he go and spy on other people? He's looking for some kind of connection. Why he would go with his car roaming around the island? Looking for what? Looking for something fulfilling him. Trying to escape from this mental state, the hell that he feels inside. The skunks at the close of the poem may be part of the hellish ugliness. Now, and at the end, what does he find? شنو آخر شيء يعني قدر يحصله؟ إيش طلع له؟ skunks. هاي الحيوان الضربان اللي هو رائحته مو حلوة. وأصلا المشهد الأخير يعني the final one when the skunk is eating from the garbage. It is not a beautiful scene indeed. It's ugly. But still from this situation, from this scene, we can find that maybe the poet is finding a glimpse here. What is this glimpse? But لاحظوا من يقول انه السكانك شكلها او حتى هذا المشهد الاخير كان بنوع من القباحة يعني ugliness. But in their stubborn survival they may offer some symbolic comfort as well. The depressing mood might not go away. يعني انت ما تقدر تتغلب ممكن على الكآبة، صح؟ الانسان ممكن ما يقدر يتخلص من هذا المرض النفسي او الحالات النفسية اللي يعيشها. Why? Because actually the modern city, the modernism is oppressing these kind of psychological problems even more. كل ما نتقدم بالزمن كل ما المشاكل النفسية تزيد، لأن الحداثة كل ما بيها جاي تمشي باتجاه يخلي الإنسان بالعكس يعني ما يرتاح نفسيا، لا يتأزم نفسيا أكثر. Okay, it doesn't go away. So what do you have to do now? You are supposed to be like a skunk. What? In what? In not caring. لاحظوا the skunk in the end, she doesn't care. She's not afraid. She's busy eating. Okay, يعني بالأخير يقول لك هي ما خاف، يعني حتى بنحاول لاحظوا هو من قال آخر شيء shooed away. She's not shooed away يعني she's not, even if you try to make her go away she would not be afraid of you. She's busy eating. يعني هذا الشيء نوعا ما ممكن شنو he should learn from the skunk how to survive regardless of how bad the situation is. يعني الإنسان واصل مرحلة لازم يتعايش مع الألم النفسي كأنما هو جزء من الحياة. This is what we can learn, you see, because it doesn't go away. It will not go away. Lowell hoped to dramatize a modern, secular version of what would once have been understood as a spiritual crisis. In the old times, إذا نحكي بالفيكتوريان, if we are speaking about the 19th, 18th century, such kind of depression or psychological problems was regarded as spiritual. It was regarded in a religious context. كانوا خلينا نقول بالسياق الديني ينظرون لهذا الموضوع من منظور ديني. Okay? But here in the modern times it is more secular, modern. الموضوع له بعد دنيوي وحديث حداثي. هذا اللي يحاول يقوله الشاعر. Writing in the age of modern psychiatry. احنا عندنا بالعصر الحديث شنو الشيء اللي تغير؟ Now we have psychology, and now we have psychological understanding of these kind of situations. احنا قبل كانوا يجوز يسمون المريض النفسي كانوا يسموه مجنون. هسه لا، قام اكو يعني تصنيف واسماء وصار طب نفسي اكو. We have psychoanalysis, so it is different. Now we have more secular understanding, more psychological understanding of these kind of sicknesses or situations. Okay, Lowell recognizes the crisis as depressive episode. His mind rather than his soul is not right. His mind. يعني جزء بالوقت القديم كان واحد يقول his soul is sick, his soul is not right. هذا يعني نوعا ما منظور ديني روحاني، بس هذا الشيء اختفى. Now we have more psychiatry or more psychological understanding and interpretation of the human situation. صار اكو تحليل نفسي. Okay, so this is all about this poem, and as you see, this is a very good example of confessional poetry, which states the kind of mental and psychological situation that the poet is feeling. And actually, if you go read about the poem, you are going to see that there are plenty of explanations and understandings of this poem. This is all for now. Hope to see you in other videos.